Hey everybody, Dr. O here. Welcome back to part 3 of the Sleep and the Fasting Brain series. We just finished talking about 15 top sleep hygiene tips to get better sleep in part 2. Now we're going to talk about the sleep-enhancing supplements that have been shown to calm the restless fasting brain. All the supplements on this list have been shown to encourage sleep, either by boosting the production of sleep-promoting hormones or by calming brain activity. I'm not covering them in order of importance. I'll explain how they work and who they might work for. For example, someone who has trouble falling asleep would want to try different supplements than someone who has trouble staying asleep. You'll have to decide which ones sound like the right fit for you. Right? You may also find that you do better if you mix things up occasionally, or if you only use supplements when you really need them rather than every day. These are all things that you're going to have to figure out. There are a lot of supplements that have been shown to help, so this is going to be a long video. Right? This does not mean that you will need all these supplements either. Right? I'm giving you tools to add to your toolbox. For the sake of time, I will not cover these products in as much detail as I do in my sleep course. Right? Each supplement has its own video inside the course. Speaking of my sleep course, stay tuned to the end of this video. I have a huge surprise for those of you who make it to the end. Wink, wink. I'm not a very good winker. All right, talk to your doctor. Right? Remember, this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor or your pharmacist to decide whether or not sleep supplements are a good idea for you. Right, and keep in mind, these are supplements. They supplement the sleep hygiene tips we covered in part 2. They don't replace them. All right, let's start with the supplements that have primarily help you to fall asleep. So we're going to start with melatonin. We're starting with melatonin because it's the most well-studied and popular sleep supplement. We are not starting with it because it's the most effective. Melatonin is a hormone that's actually naturally produced by your pineal or pineal gland in response to darkness. Melatonin doesn't actually help you fall asleep. Melatonin tells the rest of your brain and body that it's time to prepare for sleep. So it does help you fall asleep, but indirectly. So what's the science have to say? Evidence for the efficacy of melatonin in the treatment of primary adult sleep disorders, which is what I think fasting brain falls under. Results from this meta-analysis showed that the most convincing evidence for melatonin supplementation was in reducing sleep onset latency in primary insomnia. That means that sleep onset latency is how long it takes to fall asleep. But it also showed that it's really good for dealing with jet lag and for helping patients who are blind, et cetera, et cetera. But the main reason we're focused on that is helping with sleep onset latency. So who's it best for? People who struggle to fall asleep. You don't need it if you fall asleep fine. Older adults, because they naturally start to produce less melatonin. Shift workers, because their clocks are all screwed up. Jet lag, social jet lag for the same reason. People who don't get quality light exposure during the day, which hopefully, if you followed the tips from the last video, you will be. And then insomnia. Again, it's not needed if you fall asleep easily. And then also, I think many people take way too much of it. If you know, your body actually makes a minuscule amount of it compared to some of these supplements that are out there. So the safest thing to do is to start with 0.5 milligrams of melatonin and half an hour before bed. And then you increase by 0.5 milligrams each week until you find the lowest effective dose that works. And then do not exceed 5 milligrams without medical supervision. I always want you to be safe. This is my favorite low-dose melatonin product. No affiliation with any of the things I'm going to show you here, but I just want you to know where I get them if you want to know. So this is only a 0.5 milligrams, so a great place to start. And then this one would be a better one if you use a higher dose, because as you can see, it's 3 milligrams per pill. Next, we have magnesium. Magnesium has a relaxing effect on the body and the brain, which may help improve sleep quality. I love me some magnesium. So what's the science have to say? This is a neat one. A novel theanine complex, magnesium l-theanine, improves sleep quality via regulating brain electrochemical activity. So I'm going to cover l-theanine next, but this is a combination. So here's a quote. Our data indicate that magnesium l-theanine compounds potentiate the effects of l-theanine on sleep by boosting slow brain waves, regulating brain electrical activity, and increasing neurotransmitter and GABA receptor levels. You're going to hear the term GABA a lot in this video. GABA stands for gamma-aminobutyric acid, and it's the primary driver of sleep. In part 1, we talked about the neurochemicals that stimulate the brain and keep you awake. GABA is the key driver of sleep. So who's it best for? Almost everyone, right? Almost everyone would benefit from optimizing magnesium status, whether you sleep well or not. But this is a great supplement if poor sleep is caused by anxiety and a restless mind, which is what fasting brain is. So it's best to take magnesium before bed, mg's magnesium. Most studies use doses between 225 and 729 milligrams, so you have to kind of figure out what dose works best for you. But then if you're going to, I'll show you in a second, but if you're going to take magnesium threonate, which is different than the theanine we've been talking about, confusing words, the recommended dose is lower. It's 100 to 200 milligrams per day, with 150 milligrams being ideal. So I talked about this a lot in my electrolyte video, but so I use magnesium glycinate. I like this one because it causes the least gut issues. So I get 400 milligrams of magnesium from magnesium glycinate, and then I take this Magtine, which is magnesium l-threonate. This one is best for the brain because magnesium l-threonate does cross the blood-brain barrier, but I take, I believe, 144 milligrams of that. So I end up with 544 milligrams, but that might be way too much for you, might be too little for some of you. That's just how I do it. Hopefully you've already been taking magnesium based on my hydration videos anyways. It's one of the key electrolytes along with sodium and potassium. All right, next we have l-theanine. This one holds a ton of promise for the fasting brain, and it's one that you maybe haven't taken. Right? I've been involved in hundreds of conversations about sleep, and melatonin and magnesium are the two things that are brought up the most, but very rarely do people talk about l-theanine. I love this one. So l-theanine is an amino acid that's naturally found abundant in tea leaves, and it has what are called anxiolytic effects. So anxiolytic means to rip or tear apart anxiety, right? So so this is great. So it has anxiolytic effects that are required for the initiation of high quality sleep. Stress makes it very hard to sleep. L-theanine also has sedative properties. So this is all good news so far for the fasting brain. So here's a review called In Search of a Safe Natural Sleep Aid. Looked at lots of different things, but this review found that 200 milligrams of L-theanine before bed may support improved sleep quality by reducing anxiety. Specifically, this review found with L-theanine improvements of sleep quality, but especially for high energy individuals. A large decrease in overall stress, and then decreases in the severity of insomnia, again, with individuals with especially high energy. Do you see why I think this might be a killer supplement for somebody dealing with the fasting brain? Right, in part one, we talked about how the brain is too energized. L-theanine may be just what you need to tackle that problem. So here is the one that I take. So 200 milligrams of L-theanine there. Who's it best for? So people that have a hard time relaxing before bed, especially helpful if you have a hard time shutting off for bed, people dealing with a lot of stress, and people that are restless in bed. This is the fasting brain that we've been talking about. But always be careful with supplements. It's not recommended to take L-theanine if you have overly intense dreams or you sleepwalk or have night terrors, right? Talk to your doctor if there's any reason why these supplements might be a bad idea for you. So because of the timing, though, required with L-theanine, you should typically take your nightly dose about 30 minutes before bed. So the studies show between 100 and 400 milligrams are effective. I personally take 200 milligrams. Some people do better with more, some better with less. I wish I could tell you exactly what to do, but there's just no such thing as a textbook human being. This is what makes this so hard. All right, next we have lemon balm. So I'm not a huge fan of this one on its own, but I recommend combining lemon balm and L-theanine if you want a good 1-2 punch, right? They seem to work really well together. Lemon balm also reduces anxiety and promotes sleep. So who's this best for? It's a very highly rated supplement if poor sleep is caused by anxiety and a restless mind, and it's good if you have a hard time calming down before bed. So you see how L-theanine and lemon balm might be a really good combination to try. So take 300 to 1200 milligrams of lemon balm 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Start with 300 milligrams. Ramp up to 600 milligrams over the course of a week if no lower dose proves effective, but then only take a dose larger than 600 milligrams if it provides noticeably greater benefits, right? If you keep adding more and it's not helping, then I wouldn't do it. Here's the product that I use. All right, next we have lavender. This is kind of a neat one because we'll look at lavender both as an essential oil and as a supplement. So I've heard from several people even since I started this video series that say that lavender helps them a lot. Well, lavender acts on the GABA receptors, which produces a calming effect. Remember, we said GABA is this inhibitory neurotransmitter we need if we want to sleep. You'll see later that lavender has the same effect as chamomile. So lavender and chamomile have very similar actions. Studies suggest that simply smelling lavender oil shortly before sleep may be enough to improve sleep quality in those with mild insomnia. I just talked to somebody on one of the YouTube comments last week that says they add lavender oil to their pillow. Awesome idea. A 2020 study of postmenopausal women with insomnia found that those who had lavender aromatherapy before bed fell asleep quicker and had a higher quality of sleep. So pretty awesome so far. A study in older adults with dementia also suggests that lavender aromatherapy is effective at improving sleep disturbance symptoms. So what's that mean? Participants, their total sleep time increased, and fewer people woke up early, like very early, and found themselves unable to get back to sleep. So who does that sound like? Right? When I first started fasting, I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and be wide awake. So lavender might be part of the answer there. What's the science have to say? The effects of aromatherapy on sleep quality and anxiety of patients. So lavender essential oil increased quality of sleep and reduced level of anxiety in patients with coronary artery disease. So lots of studies that are pointing towards lavender being a good idea. Another one, a systematic review of the effect of inhaled essential oils on sleep. So this was a systematic review of 15 studies that found that including essential oils, or inhaling essential oils, including lavender, had positive effects in people with mild sleep disturbances. Lavender was the most frequently studied essential oil in this review, and no adverse events were reported. But what's interesting is its real power appears to be in supplemental form. So far we've been talking about inhaling it as an essential oil. But let's look at Selexan here. So let me read this title quick. Selexan, an orally administered lavandula oil preparation, is effective in the treatment of subsyndromal anxiety disorder, a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. So this lavender oil preparation, supplemental form, had a significant beneficial influence on quality and duration of sleep. So here's a quote. Selexan is both efficacious and safe for the relief of anxiety disorder. It has a clinically meaningful, as we'll see in the next study, anxiolytic effect and alleviates anxiety-related disturbances in sleep. Exactly what we're talking about. Let's look at this one here. A couple of them really. A multi-center, double-blind, randomized study of the lavender oil preparation Selexan in comparison to lorazepam, which is Ativan, for generalized anxiety disorder. So a couple quotes. In conclusion, our results demonstrate that Selexan is as effective as lorazepam, which is Ativan, in adults with general anxiety disorder. Another quote, Selexan appears to be an effective and well-tolerated alternative to benzodiazepines for the treatment of generalized anxiety, which is what I think the fasting brain kind of falls under that category. Another one, efficacy and safety of lavender essential oil, Selexan, capsules among patients suffering from anxiety disorders, a network meta-analysis. So this one studied or compared Selexan to paroxetine and lorazepam. So this is not a pharmacology class, don't worry about it. But paroxetine is Paxil, probably heard of that one, and lorazepam is Ativan. So people with anxiety disorders who took 160 milligrams of lavender oil capsules experienced significant decreases in anxiety. Let's look at this. There were 5 studies that were identified with a total of 524 participants who were taking 80 milligrams of Selexan and 121 participants who were taking 160 milligrams of Selexan. So the group that was taking 80 milligrams of Selexan, the lavender preparation, had the same effects as the people that were taking paroxetine or Paxil. So the same effect. The group that was taking 160 milligrams of Selexan had more efficient treatment than people taking Paxil. So 80 milligrams was the same as taking this anti-anxiety medication. 160 milligrams was more effective. So who's this best for? Honestly, this supplement, if you look at the studies, this supplement blurs the lines between a supplement and a medication, if you look at the studies. So it's a great supplement if poor sleep is caused by anxiety and a restless mind, again, what we've been talking about, and then people with generalized anxiety disorder. So start with 80 milligrams of Selexan per day, and then work up to 160 milligrams per day over the course of 1 to 2 weeks if needed. Right? And you can also use lavender oil as an aromatherapy. You can burn it as a candle, it can be heated, placed in a vaporizer, added to a hot bath, however you want to use it. I like to put essential oils on my wrists and my neck. 30 minutes of exposure is most effective for the aromatherapy. So here's one of the products, Nature's Way Calmade. I personally don't use this product, but my wife loves it. Right, so this is one of my favorites for her. This is not one that I take. I have plenty of sleep supplements, and before I found the research on Selexan and lavender, I was already sleeping well. So we do use lavender essential oils, but I don't take any of the supplements like my wife does. Next, we have 5-HTP, which stands for 5-hydroxytryptophan. So why does tryptophan ring a bell? Well, turkey makes you sleepy, as they say, and that's because it has a lot of tryptophan. So tryptophan is the amino acid that you need to build melatonin, which helps you sleep. So 5-hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP, boosts the production of serotonin, which has been linked to the regulation of sleep. I covered that in the last video. It's one of the reasons that exercise helps you sleep. Yes, you need tryptophan to make melatonin, but serotonin actually becomes melatonin. So this is why 5-HTP works, and also why it works better than just having tryptophan. What's the science have to say, though? A randomized, placebo-controlled trial of an amino acid preparation on timing and quality of sleep. So I'm going to talk about this one in a couple places because this was a trial using gabadone, which is a combination of GABA, which we'll cover later, and then 5-HTP. And there were other ingredients as well, but the stuff's pretty impressive here, the numbers. So the baseline time to fall asleep was 32.3 minutes in the trial subjects, which was reduced to 19.1 minutes after gabadone administration. So that means that people were falling asleep 13.2 minutes faster. And then the baseline duration of sleep, so the people in this trial, they were sleeping 5 hours per night. It increased to 6.83. I mean, that is a massive difference, right? 1.83 more hours of sleep. Ease of falling asleep, number of awakenings, and morning grogginess all improved. So this was not just 5-HTP. It was a combination of that plus GABA. So who's this best for? Again, people who struggle to fall asleep because 5-HTP boosts melatonin production, and melatonin is needed to fall asleep. So 5-HTP is a good option to use with GABA, at least according to the study that I just showed you. And then doses up to 600 milligrams per day, taken either once daily or in divided doses, seems to be effective in treating insomnia. So here's my favorite GABA plus 5-HTP product on the market. All right, so these are all supplements that are primarily going to help with falling asleep. But what if your main issue is staying asleep? That was me. I fell asleep pretty easy almost every day when I first started fasting, but then I would wake up in the middle of the night. I wake up several times per night. So this was me, and this is why these are supplements that I take and still take every day. So let's start with glycine. So I've mentioned glycine in other videos before. That's actually why I started talking about sleep. People were asking me why I was supplementing with glycine. So glycine is an amino acid that's one of the two key inhibitory neurotransmitters. The other one is the GABA we keep talking about. Glycine supplementation causes a significant decrease in the core body temperature, which we've said in the last video. Dropping the core temperature, being in a cool room, these are all signs that you need to sleep or it's time to sleep. What's the science say? Glycine ingestion improves subjective sleep quality in human volunteers, correlating with polysomnographic changes, which would be sleep study. Participants who took 3 grams of glycine, which is what I take, before bedtime, showed improved objective measures of sleep quality compared with the placebo group. Glycine supplements also help participants fall asleep faster, which is why it's in this category. And that also improved, glycine supplementation also improved subjective sleep quality and lessened daytime sleepiness. So all good news. The cool thing about glycine, so who's it best for? People who struggle to fall asleep and stay asleep especially. But the great thing about glycine is it's just a great amino acid. It's good for gut health. It's the reason people benefit from bone broth and these types of things. So I love things that have a positive side effect, if you want to call it that. So I'm a big fan of glycine. What do you take? Take 3 to 5 grams 60 minutes before bed. So 3 grams works fine for me, but I do know some people that take 5 grams per day. We're going to cover valerian next. Glycine and valerian root have both been shown to help people stay asleep more than fall asleep, which is why they're important. So here's the glycine that I take from Now Foods. All right, next we have valerian, that I just mentioned. So several studies do suggest that valerian can help you fall asleep and improve sleep quality, but it does seem to be more effective at helping you stay asleep. So for years, even years ago when I was seeing patients and stuff, I would always say that. I would say if you have trouble fall asleep, melatonin's the key. Have trouble staying asleep, valerian's important. All right, what's the science have to say? A systematic review and meta-analysis on the effect of herbal medicine to manage sleep dysfunction in peri and postmenopause. So in this study we had, after intake of 530 milligrams of valerian twice a day for 1 month, statistically significant effects were observed regarding the quality of sleep of postmenopausal women. So this is, again, a great choice if staying asleep is a bigger problem than falling asleep. And then it's the most common dosages being used are going to be 300 to 600 milligrams per day. But as you can see, that one study was actually a little bit higher. So some studies do use dosages between 1,000 and 1,200 milligrams per day. And I do think this pairs really nicely with valerian. For a while, I did use glycine on its own without valerian, but I found that the combination does seem to help. And here's the valerian root that I take. I'm going to warn you, it stinks when you open the bottle. We still laugh about it. I have my son sniff the bottle every once in a while, and we laugh about how bad it smells. All right. So now we've talked about supplements that can help you fall asleep, supplements that can help you stay asleep, and of course there is some overlap. But the real tough nuts to crack are people who have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. So one option is to try different combinations of the supplements we've already covered, but there are a few more that you may want to consider as well. So let's dive into those. Next, we have chamomile or apigenin. So we've all heard of chamomile tea, but chamomile actually contains the compound apigenin, which is a chemical compound that induces sleepiness when it binds to the GABA receptors in the brain. We keep talking about that GABA. When the apigenin in chamomile binds to GABA receptors, it has a sedative and relaxing effect. Right, and this has a similar effect as many of the anti-anxiety drugs. We've also talked earlier about how chamomile and lavender work in similar ways. What's the science have to say? Preliminary examination of the efficacy and safety of a standardized chamomile extract for chronic primary insomnia, a randomized placebo-controlled pilot study. So in this group, in this study, people took 270 milligrams of a chamomile extract twice per day for 28 days. They had 1/3 less or fewer nighttime awakenings. They fell asleep 15 minutes faster than those who did not consume the extract. So you're thinking 15 minutes, big deal. That's 5,475 minutes per year. That's over 91 hours of extra sleep just from falling asleep faster. But they also woke up less during the night. So who's this best for? People who struggle with anxiety. Right? We talked about how it uses the GABA receptors and helps to calm you. So people who wake up in the middle of the night, and then older adults seem to benefit from this as well. You can use chamomile tea. You can use chamomile extract, and the dosage there is usually 500 milligrams, or you can specifically use apigenin, which would be a lower dose because it's the end product, so it's 50 milligrams there. All right, so here, sleepy time tea. I've heard people talk about this a lot. Sleepy time tea is an example of a chamomile tea. And then here's an example of a chamomile supplement that you can take, which I do not use, but this is one that I've seen. Here's the one that I like, the actual apigenin, where you use lower doses. Next, we have ashwagandha. This has been shown to induce sleep. It also influences the body's ability to cope with stress and lower cortisol levels. So one study of 150 people with poor sleep quality found that those who supplemented with 120 milligrams of standardized ashwagandha extract once a day for 6 weeks reported a 72% improvement in the quality of their sleep. And this compared to a 29% improvement in the control or placebo group. What's the science say about ashwagandha? So the effect of ashwagandha, I'm not going to try to say the next part, extract on sleep, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So they looked at a total of 5 randomized controlled trials containing 400 participants. So here's where it worked the best. The effects on sleep were more prominent in the subgroup of adults diagnosed with insomnia. So if you have insomnia, it's more likely to help. When the treatment dosage was 600 milligrams per day or higher, and the treatment duration was 8 weeks or higher. So it can take a while to get the full effect. And the cool thing about this one, though, no serious side effects were reported. So who's ashwagandha best for? People who struggle with anxiety, people dealing with a lot of stress, and people with high nighttime cortisol levels, which causes that tired and wired we've talked about in other places. Cortisol levels are supposed to be high in the morning, and then they're supposed to dip. So a cortisol spike before bed makes it hard to fall asleep. A cortisol spike in the middle of the night will wake you up. So we want to keep our cortisol levels low when we're sleeping. So if you get a spike in cortisol levels, I was just talking to my stepson about this the other day. He's real tired around 8 o'clock, but then he tries to go to bed at 10 and he's wide awake. Well, that's because he's getting a spike in cortisol too late in the evening, and that's what it means to be tired and wired. You're exhausted, you can't even wait to get to bed. Then you go lay down in bed and you're staring at the ceiling. That kind of person is one that I usually recommend ashwagandha for. And so that's just a good idea. All right, so because it is best known for its anxiolytic effects, remember anti-anxiety effects, as well as its stress-relieving effects like we've talked about. All right, so studies generally do use around 600 milligrams per day. It can be taken once or twice per day, but it is best to take at least one of the doses before bed if sleep is your issue. And here's the ashwagandha I like. All right, next we have GABA. Remember, GABA is gamma-aminobutyric acid. There won't be a test. It's the major inhibitory or calming neurotransmitter in the brain. Right? Almost every supplement we've talked about impacts GABA in some way. It either triggers GABA receptors, makes the receptors more sensitive, etc., etc. And why is that? So why do they help with sleep? Because GABA may help the central nervous system relax by calming down the neocortex, the conscious portion of our brain. Low GABA levels lead to anxiety and what's called rumination, where you just think about a cow as a ruminant animal. It just chews on grass all day. Well, rumination means negative thought patterns. You're chewing on negative thought patterns all day or all night when you're trying to go to sleep. So this is why GABA is important. But then why have we waited till the end to talk about it, right? GABA is important. It really is. But it's not my favorite supplement to go to right away. Let's look at this here. Safety and efficacy of gamma-aminobutyric acid from fermented rice germ in patients with insomnia symptoms. A randomized double-blind trial. So pretty impressive stuff here. They took 300 milligrams of GABA an hour before going to bed. They fell asleep faster than those who took a placebo. They also reported improved sleep quality 4 weeks after starting treatment. So what were the results? After 4 weeks of treatment, the sleep latency had decreased. So from 13.4 minutes to 5.7 minutes. That means that people were falling asleep 7.7 minutes faster. And the sleep efficacy had increased from 79.4% to 86.1%. So what does that mean? That means that 86% of the time they were in bed, they were now asleep, compared to 79.4%. That ends up being a half hour of extra sleep time per night, which would be over 180 hours more sleep per year. But adverse events occurred in 4 subjects, which is why this is pretty far down the list. It can be great. It's a high reward, but there is a little more risk with this one than other supplements. So this is why I saved GABA for the end of the list. Not telling you not to use it. I take it. I don't have any problems with it. It's a powerful sleep supplement, but it can cause issues in some people, including really intense dreams. So just be careful, start slow, etc., etc. So I do take it without any issues, but I always want you to focus on safety first. I don't want you to do anything that's bad for your health. That's not why we're here. All right, another one. We've already covered this one, though. A randomized placebo-controlled trial of an amino acid preparation on timing and quality of sleep. This is one we talked about back with HTP. So Gabadone, which has GABA and 5-HTP. The people in this trial, they fell asleep 13.2 minutes faster and they slept 1.83 more hours. So if you're going to use GABA, I would recommend combining GABA and 5-HTP to get the maximum effect. So who's this best for? People who are too wired to sleep, just like a lot of the other supplements, and then people who ruminate or have these intrusive thoughts in their brain at night. Dosages. Dosages of 250 to 500 milligrams and no more than 1,000 milligrams are recommended. I recommend staying on the lower end and being really careful. But we've already talked about how GABA works better with 5-HTP, but then also it does seem to pair really well with that l-theanine we covered a long time ago. And here's GABA. And then here's the product I showed you earlier, which is GABA plus 5-HTP. All right, lastly, I want to talk about a few sleep formulations, right? I've given you a ton of different supplements that you may want to try, and you may have to tinker with it and try different things, but one of the simplest places to start is to look for sleep formulations that have already combined a lot of these products in one place. So I can't cover every sleep formula here, but here are some examples that I have personally used and benefited from, right? I love to experiment on myself so I can help you. Just make sure that they have the combinations of ingredients that work well for you. So the first one is a real basic one. I'd say it's if cost is a big concern, cost plus the experience of people that I've recommended use this, including myself at different times. The Qunol Sleep Support, this 5-in-1, it's the most inexpensive way to get a lot of the ingredients that we've talked about here. So again, no affiliation. The biggest issue with sleep formulations is the dosages of most of the ingredients are too low compared to the research. But I think it helps a lot because they have a synergistic effect. So maybe small doses of 6 to 8 ingredients may work better than larger doses of 1 or 2. So worth considering at least. So you'll see here, the Qunol formula has Valerian, Ashwagandha, Chamomile, lemon balm, lavender, GABA, l-theanine, and melatonin. So it hits a lot. It checks a lot of the boxes that we've talked about. So it's one to consider. Here's a new one, not new, but new to me, the Pure Encapsulation's Best Rest formula. So I recently tried this one, and it seems to work very well for me. So I love the company too. So this one has melatonin, GABA, l-theanine, valerian, lemon balm, hops, which we haven't talked about, but passion flower also haven't talked about, but I love it, and chamomile. So this is a pretty good one as well. But if you want to go to the top shelf, right, we have Doc Parsley's Sleep Remedy. This is the most expensive product on the list, but it's also the highest quality product on the list as well. it has higher doses, more clinically meaningful doses of several products that are going to help you sleep. So this one has L-tryptophan, GABA, vitamin D3, which does help with sleep, but it's not in this video. I can't cover them all in one place. Magnesium 3 and 8, which we said is really good for the brain. Phosphatidylserine, also a good one for relaxing the brain. L-theanine, 5-HTP, and melatonin. All right, so on to the surprise that I promised my loyal subscribers who make it all the way to the end of a long video like this. Right there. So here's my sleep course, highest rated sleep course on Udemy. Well over 500 people have taken it. It was 500 when I took this screenshot here. You see it's normally priced somewhere around $79.99. And there's always a link in the description to my sleep course and my fasting course. But the first 100 people who click the link will get lifetime access to the course for free. All you have to do, click the link, and then choose enroll now when you register. Don't buy it. You click. Sorry, the code is already built into the link. Just click enroll now and then register, and you'll be all set. Lifetime free access. So act fast though, because the link will expire. I don't know when you're watching this video compared to when I recorded it, and it will only work for the first 100 people. So this course, right? I poured my heart and soul into this course. I can't sleep for you, but I do want to make it as easy as possible. The course has 100 lessons. It's over 6 hours long. It also has this Better Sleep Roadmap, which is full, right? The roadmap is full of the key tips and takeaways from the course, as well as checklists like this one to follow, and this one here. So it basically sums up the entire course in a small ebook format, I guess you would say. The course also includes the 21-day 3 weeks to better sleep challenge to get you started. So it can help over 3 weeks time. You're slowly improving your sleep quality and your sleep hygiene, and you're turning these things into hopefully lifelong habits. And the course also has a 90-page sleep supplement guide that covers everything in this video and beyond. Oop, sorry about that. I thought there was one more slide. So, okay, I've been through everything that I want to cover here. This was part 3. Sorry for that. But so in the next video, part 4, we're going to come back and look at what we do if nothing works, right? If you tried the sleep hygiene tips in part 2, you tried the supplements in part 3, and you're still not getting any sleep, we will look at what to do, right? We'll look at how to survive a poor night of sleep, and then maybe how you should modify your fasting program. So I look forward to helping you there as well. Have a wonderful day. Be blessed.